What is it? Was working? All right, sorry. Yeah, not an expert here by any stretch of the imagination. But what's up? So, how's it going? A little bit of impromptu sort of live stream here. It was kind of funny. I was actually going back and I was kind of rewatching the fourth episode of season six of Better Call Saul, entitled "Hit and Run," and I was thinking just about what type of video to make and things of that nature. And I was kind of going back and I was really thinking. I really feel like everything was kind of outwardly displayed to us. I really feel like there wasn't too much subtlety in that episode. Like we really knew basically everything. I mean, why Wendy came back. Why Mike interacted with Kim. Everything was kind of outwardly revealed to us, and I was kind of thinking about how, like I said, like what's the point in speculating about anything or kind of just like rehashing everything. But when I kind of put when I kind of put two and two together here with that the tweet they put out here a couple months ago, or not a couple months ago, a couple weeks ago, excuse me. I'm kind of a little bit flustered here, but it was just kind of really got myself thinking about whether or not these two characters would actually appear in the fifth episode of season six of Better Call Saul next week. And it was funny, I was actually thinking back to the fact that Nacho Varga appeared in the third episode, entitled Rock and Hard Place. And, I really thought there's no way he's going to appear in the third episode. Are you kidding me? But part of me really thinks that it makes a lot of sense here for Walt and Jesse to appear in the fifth episode, just because it just seems so counterintuitive. Maybe this title of, Black and Blue is just a red herring here. Who knows? It's possible, but, it's still kind of interesting here for sure. And it's actually kind of funny. This photo right here, I was going back and watching that episode, and basically after sort of Jesse sort of comes out of his sort of self-loathing state after he, had to, well, he didn't, he was supposed to sort of handle it with, Spooge, who appeared in the previous episode, and, Negro y Azul was one episode after Peekaboo, after Spooge's death. So I'm kind of really putting together the, the sort of conspiracy theory board here, like I kind of posted in my community post with Charlie from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia here, really kind of putting things together. And I was thinking about making a video about this, about how, maybe they'll come back this week, but I really just found myself thinking like there's just so many different avenues that you could go down. And at the end of the day, you're just basically being a total conspiracy theorist here completely. So I was like, I just really just feel like I kind of just wanted to sort of ramble about it a little bit more, because when I tried to sort of put it together a video about this, either it'd be what about this thing, what about that thing, this is just speculation, blah blah blah. So I don't know. I was just kind of going back and sort of thinking about it, and like I remember before the season started, like I said, maybe they'll appear in the final episode of the first part of season six of Better Call Saul Part 1. Because that would garner interest for part 2. But I really feel like there's like a month and a half break in between each half of the season. So, wouldn't all of the sort of momentum be lost after that? And, part of me really wonders, like, if they come back just out of the blue, like episode 5, just such a random episode, of 13, number 5, no one would have expected it. And just like no one would have expected Nacho Varga to die in the third episode, for sure, no one would have taken that bet. And I really just think if they come back in episode 5, and most likely in some sort of flash forward sort of appearance based on this photo right here, but you would really kind of garner the interest, I feel, for the final 2 episodes of part 1 maybe. Then again, maybe you prematurely shoot your wad here also if you have them come back in the 5th episode. So, it's just, I don't know, I just really found myself thinking here. And again, this is one episode prior to Saul Goodman coming in the fold in the episode entitled Better Call Saul, following the episode Negro y Azul here. So again, it seems just so pointless in speculating about it, but it's definitely something that really interests me for sure. David Arenas. Actually, I was planning on talking about that in a different video, the sort of where is Lalo, but I guess I can talk a little bit about it now as well. I've definitely thought about that as well too, the fact that he hasn't been around in 3 episodes. Again, it's just sort of rampant speculation here for sure. And I definitely, in a very interesting sort of, I was going back and I heard some people talking on Reddit about how, maybe he'll go after, Werner Ziegler's wife or something to that effect, or maybe even Kai, because when he talked to Werner in, I believe, the finale of season 4 of Better Call Saul, entitled Winner Takes It All, or no, I think it was just Winner. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was just Winner. if my memory serves me correctly. But that last sentence that he said about how Kai would know what to do, he was then cut off on the telephone by Mike Ehrmantraut. And Lalo said that he didn't get that last part, and he didn't really know what he said there when he was talking about Kai. So again, I've heard the Germany sort of theory that really sort of resonates with me for sure, because I really just don't know what else it could be. You know, I mean, I've heard maybe he's in Chile. Some people said that he went in the opposite direction of the Mexican frontera, you know, the border, and he was actually going the other way, you know, from the U.S.-Mexico border. So Mike will kill Lalo when Lalo tries to make a move. Yeah, definitely possible, you know, definitely possible for sure. And like, not to go like too much down the rabbit hole here, but because of just like the even like right now where the story stands, where you know Gus Fring believes and kind of knows that Gus Fring is that Lalo is still alive. At the same time, you know, Hector doesn't know that Gus knows, you know, so it's kind of like, I guess theoretically we could go back to that piece of dialogue, and maybe, you know, he says the Salamanca name dies with you because the whole cartel thinks that, you know, Lalo is actually dead, but Gus knows he's still alive and he just never dies. I mean, really kind of, you know, putting together the Pepe Sylvia, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia conspiracy theory board here. So I'm not ready to see Kim die, David Arenas. Yeah, neither am I. I don't know if we're gonna. For some reason, I don't see it. For some reason, I just don't see Kim dying. You know, maybe they sort of get, you know, caught up in something from a legal perspective, but I just don't see it. So, but yeah, anyway, this was a great episode here. I actually just rewatched Negro y Azul recently, and of course, I've talked about this, how this was the first episode where Tortuga appeared as well in season 2 of Breaking Bad, excuse me. So I would love to see Danny Trejo reprise his role in this episode as well, possibly. So, what curve you got to figure Thomas Cunningham? You got to figure whoever picked this particular picture of Walt and Jesse. Yeah, you'd think so, but then again, you do wonder if it's sort of misdirection here. You know, it's after what happened in the third episode. You know, you thought like, okay, we're very clearly walking down a very clear path here, and then just like the term you used, what a curveball Nacho's death was. So it seems almost like, again, it's like you kind of you want to outthink yourself here. Where this picture is from Negro y Azul. The 5th episode is called Black and Blue. You know, is that just a total coincidence? Is it a red herring? I mean, possibly. I mean, when we go back to the plot of that episode, just to kind of summarize it after watching it. So basically, after Jesse witnessed the death of Spooge in the episode entitled Peekaboo, so, you know, we had this very kind of interesting scene here, this kind of opening montage scene here that's displayed here in this photo. I guess we can kind of talk about that a little bit later. But specifically talking about the plot of Walt and Jesse here. So basically, you know, Walt tries to get in touch with Jesse in this episode. And what happens is, like, Jesse's just totally self-loathing, smoking marijuana and eating Funyuns and, like, you know, sleeping on a sleeping bag, just trying to, like, you know, deal with his almost PTSD from, you know, what he experienced in the previous episode. And then, you know, Walt just tries to talk him out of it. But, of course, when he meets with Combo and Badger and Skinny Pete here, you know, this is when they sort of say the word is out, and, like, you know, everyone knows that Jesse killed Spooge with the ATM machine by crushing his head. So this was the episode by which you know, Walt and Jesse were able to start to expand their territory, where, like, you know, the word is out, you know, at the end of this episode when Jesse finally tackles his self-loathing, you know, and says, all right, this is our city, we run this city. Of course, Gus Fring's not even in the fold yet. I mean, these people don't even know about Gus Fring, even though he's the one who really runs Albuquerque for sure. So, and anyway, in this scene here that was tweeted out in this episode, we then see Walt tell Jesse to raise the prices. We're not charging enough, you know, corner the market and then raise the price. Simple economic supply and demand. Of course, what was interesting here, the subplot here with Walt when he says this dialogue to Jesse Pinkman in the car here, was that Skyler was going back to work because, you know, everyone thought he was on the verge of bankruptcy because of his chemo treatments and everything to that effect. And obviously he hated to see Skyler working for Ted Beneke when she was like, what, 8-9 months pregnant. So that's why he was kind of saying to Jesse to raise the price. So again, it was like the storyline didn't seem like too sort of, it didn't seem like it was, what's the word I'm looking for here? It just didn't seem like it applied to Better Call Saul that significantly after watching this episode. And, you know, Saul Goodman doesn't even appear until the next episode, entitled Better Call Saul, after the scene when Badger gets arrested in the cold opening scene. So again, maybe it's a red herring. It could possibly be a red herring, but at the end of the day, I'm not really sure. And I kind of talked about how I really feel like if it just, what a surprise it would be if they just came back in the fifth episode, because I feel like everyone thinks, of course, it's going to be like the last episode of part one or the last episode of part two or the first episode of part two, somewhere significant, somewhere symbolic, but it would just be such a curveball, like akin to the death of Nacho Varga, if just in the fifth episode of 13, such a random number, doesn't even divide evenly. We just have most likely a flash forward scene if this image has anything to do with it, because actually I was going back to the sort of Walter White's car wash cameo premise. And actually, if we take a look at the timeline of Better Call Saul here, which definitely is not correct. I mean, you have to take this website with a grain of salt, because it says that only 2 days elapsed in all three episodes that have premiered so far. It actually doesn't even have episode 4. But yeah, I guess, well, actually, I didn't even notice I didn't have episode 4. But irrespective, if we take this as literal, these are the 6 days past, and then we heard Mike Ehrmantraut state to Gus Fring that they've been monitoring for Lalo for 2 weeks. So we're still in May, and the point I'm getting at here is Walter White said he worked at the car wash for 4 years, and he quit around September of 2008. If we take the timeline that was displayed to us in the episode entitled American Greed. And so my point is that it has not actually been 4 exact years since Walter White worked at the car wash, because he didn't start working there until September, theoretically. But I guess we could take some artistic license with that dialogue, and maybe the creators will as well. But I imagine we would maybe have some flash forward scene, but why to the season 2 of Breaking Bad? This was the season when they first met Saul Goodman in the very next episode. So again, not really sure, but Walt's going to be cleaning the Namaste car. I wouldn't mind that, man. I wouldn't mind that. Again, you would imagine this would have to be a flashback scene or flash forward, depending on what vantage point you're using for the timeline of Better Call Saul currently. But yeah, for sure, Midnight Madness, that would be great to see. I agree, Thomas Cunningham was definitely a plot development episode for sure. I talked about this, how, hard to follow episode 3. And it definitely almost seemed like a sort of transition episode where, maybe you have Nacho's death and then the transition episode, and maybe, just maybe, the 5th episode we see Walt and Jesse. So that'd be quite the sort of puzzle they'd be putting together. So, Saad, I'm sorry if I pronounced that incorrectly. Do you think Kim is behind the scenes in Breaking Bad? Maybe she's the one who told Saul. I mean, it's possible. It's absolutely possible. Again, maybe I was reading too much into it when Ray Seahorn said that, season 6 of Better Call Saul was devastating. Maybe she's just referring to Nacho Varga. At the end of the day, there's nothing that contradicts your theory right here. It's definitely possible for sure. How did Jimmy first meet Wendy? Have we seen them together in Better Call Saul? That's a good question, Suze B. Art. I talked about it. There was a Breaking Bad webisode where Wendy said she was a client of Saul Goodman's, but there was very little backstory there, and what was described there almost seemed like a different scene that happened compared to what happened in the plot of Better Call Saul last week. So it is, of course, theoretically possible that, Wendy used Saul Goodman as a lawyer in the future, in the next 4 years or 5 years or 6 years from the current point in the timeline to when the timeline of Breaking Bad finally finishes. But that's actually a good point you raised. I was thinking back to that video I made about Saul and Spooge after his meeting wasn't even displayed to us in the last episode. And I was thinking back to just all of the different clients that he claimed to have in the plot of Breaking Bad. I made a compilation video about it. And part of me now really thinks we're just not going to see these very, very intricate details just because we just don't have time for it. And I mean, we don't know how exactly he chose this person specifically when they decided to move against Howard Hammond like they did. And I don't know if we ever will, just based on the necessity, seemingly, of this plot to progress, because there's only 9 episodes left. As much as I'd like to see all these little details, and as much as I definitely enjoyed them in the previous seasons, which I feel like were a much, much slower pace, but again, we just don't know. That's an interesting point as well, Danny. You're talking about the civilians whose house Gus is using to monitor for law. Yeah, that's a really interesting point. When I first saw them in the cold opening scene, I thought, okay, this is a husband and wife tandem. But then when I saw them there, I thought, oh, are they actually working for Gus Fring? But if you go back to the credits, I believe, for that episode, they were actually a husband and wife couple who's, I guess, they were letting Gus use his home, but there clearly must be some sort of relationship there, Danny, because that tunnel takes years to build or months. That did not just happen over the course of a couple of weeks, I would imagine, after what happened with Lalo. So you imagine Gus Fring had been cultivating that relationship for many years, but that's an interesting point for sure. I guess that is a husband and wife team who's allowing Gus to use their house as this command central, I suppose. I don't know what the timeline of that is and how long that had been happening, but it's an interesting point you raised. So that's an interesting point. Again, I am so sorry about this name, Izake. That's an interesting point about Spooge as well. I don't know. I don't know if that was just for a cameo. You would think that he would have a bigger role than just, to sort of display to us that he actually was a client. But at the same time, I guess it is possible we just sort of now know for a fact that that's how Spooge met Saul when Saul mentioned it in the plot of Breaking Bad. And it was kind of interesting how the booming of the business for Saul Goodman came as a result of him representing Lalo Salamanca and Spooge being the one to break that news to Saul in that scene. So that was pretty consequential for sure, but I definitely thought his role would be bigger. And again, it's possible. I thought so for sure, but just based on the fact that I wouldn't say glossing over, but they're not getting into the very nitty gritty of a lot of specific details here in this scene. So, in this season, excuse me. So part of me doesn't thinks it's definitely possible we don't see him again, but I don't know. It's tough to tell. Ryan Buckley, who's that dude with Spooge? Yeah, I heard some people say it was Emilio, but it's definitely not because that guy had a neck tattoo that Emilio did not have in the plot of Breaking Bad. So unless Emilio got his tattoo, how do you that term with lasered off, which I think is really ridiculous. That I have no, I think that I have no idea who that was. So and actually, another interesting point, I was actually going back to this website, the Breaking Bad sort of, I don't know what you'd call this, sort of encyclopedia, sort of default that. But it was actually kind of interesting. I looked, and there have been 3 episode spans by which Nacho Varga did not appear in the plot of Better Call Saul. And so far, Lalo Salamanca hasn't appeared in 3 straight episodes. But actually, very interestingly, going all the way back to season 1 of Better Call Saul, there was actually unbelievably I couldn't even realize I didn't even remember this, but I guess it's true. There was a 4 episode span in season 1 of Better Call Saul where Nacho Varga did not appear. Where the last episode he appeared in before his 4 episode break was the episode Hero, where he got let out of jail after the after Jimmy found the Kettlemans at the end of the episode entitled Nacho, and then he got out of jail in Hero. And interestingly, he didn't appear in the next 4 episodes until Pimento when he did the drug deal with Price. And I definitely think it's because he wasn't as big of a character at the time in the plot of Better Call Saul in season 1, but that's 4 episodes in a row, so I still wonder maybe we won't see Lalo Salamanca in the next episode. I guess it's possible. I guess it's possible for sure. That would be akin to Nacho Varga in season 1 of Better Call Saul, and I'm not sure, but can't wait to find out. So again, I'm sorry, Exili. How do we see the Gene story ending? Another great question. Again, it's really tough. Like I was thinking about, like I said, I was planning on making some videos here, but like some more just regular videos. But for this week, I just really felt like everything was kind of like it was pretty clear. I feel like there really wasn't anything sort of not clear that was displayed to us in the previous episode. I feel like there really wasn't anything to explain. Everything was pretty much concretely displayed to us. And but when in regards to the speculation, it's just so tough. It's absolutely so tough at this point, and I don't know. Like part of me always believed that Gene would get away with it in the end. I don't know why. I mean, I have heard, he was referred to as that sort of cockroach that survives the nuclear blast, and he did survive that. Walter White and Gus Fring's drug empire coming crumbling down, and he's still alive right now. So part of me thinks he'll get away with it, and reunite with Kim maybe in Nebraska. I don't know. Maybe that's a little bit too derivative or too cliche. I don't know, but I really couldn't tell you right now. That's a great theory, Benedict Jones. I've definitely heard that one as well. I guess it's possible for sure. If the Taco Cabeza reference again could be a red herring. Don't know for sure, but it's definitely possible. The sort of Jesse and Emilio theory. I've heard that one for sure, based on the Taco Cabeza reference at the end of the previous episode. But you wonder how Walter White would appear. I guess I haven't even considered that. I guess it is possible that we see Jesse Pinkman and not Walter White, because I talked about this in a previous video, how other than the car wash scene, like Walter White was so far removed from this world. He was literally the epitome of good. He never took a risk or did a bad thing in his life. He was Mr. Chips. So other than having him at the car wash, I mean, it would just be so ridiculous to see Saul Goodman bump into him at the grocery store or something so forced like that. So, that is a good point. I guess it's possible we only see Jesse Pinkman next week and maybe no Walter White. Again, it's total speculation, but who knows? Again, I suppose Benedict Jones, the Walton Hank kind of premise, but again, they wouldn't be taught. I feel like Walt really even had no interest in Hank's work really before he went on that ride along. You could really just see the sort of distance he had when Hank was talking about his line of work, and it really, I mean, he was a little bit sort of intrigued by the fact that meth dealers can make so much money, but again, to sort of have Walter White appear in Hank Schrader's sort of circle again, I feel like Hank is just not central to the story right now. So I guess it's theoretically possible, but I just feel like it'd be somewhat forced, especially with Hank Schrader not appearing this season so far. And it's actually kind of funny. I was actually going back to the storyline of Nacho Varga and just talking about how his death in season 3 of Better Call Saul, in season 6 of Better Call Saul in the third episode. Spoiler alert if I just ruined it for everyone. But I was thinking how that storyline seems to really change Saul Goodman's dialogue in the desert, seemingly on the surface. But then actually going back to season 5 of Better Call Saul and that whole storyline that ensued with Crazy 8 and Hank Schrader and Steve Gomez, it really it was literally lifted almost verbatim from what was displayed to us in the plot of Breaking Bad. So there definitely wasn't a sort of twist there like there was with Saul Goodman's dialogue in reference to Ignacio Varga. And I really feel like this is a terrible thing to say, but I don't actually feel this way, but it almost comes across as like lazy in the sense compared to just how much of a twist it seems that the storyline with Saul Goodman's dialogue in reference to Ignacio took compared with his death in the third episode of the season. So again, just it was just kind of interesting going back to just the people talking about Crazy 8 and Emilio and how, again, I really feel like we almost don't even need to see him. And not because I don't want to see him, but I really just feel like his story has kind of culminated to the final point where it was when we first met him in the plot of Breaking Bad. And you would imagine that whatever happens with the cartel in the next 4 years in this timeline is going to promote him in the ranks because he's still around and he definitely has a higher ranking spot in the cartel. But it is kind of funny. I was thinking back to that Emilio storyline. I'm like, man, it was kind of predictable. Like, I made a video predicting what would happen prior to season 5, and it basically happened verbatim because it was just lifted completely from the dialogue of Breaking Bad. But if you made a video prior to season 6 about what was going to happen with Saul and Ignacio, you'd be seemingly a little bit off compared to just what a twist that storyline was and how they didn't just, directly lift it and, place it in front of us on screen in season 6 of Better Call Saul. So Ultimate Games, that's an interesting point. Again, that I guess that's possible. That's actually kind of interesting, sort of having Saul and Mike converse. Because again, when Saul was talking about his PI in season 2 of Breaking Bad, before Mike showed up at the end of season 2. It was just implied that he had a PI. It wasn't, but we didn't know it was Mike. So that would kind of be interesting, to kind of see the backstory of that scene. But again, I wonder how that would factor into the storyline. I guess it could for sure. That's actually an interesting sort of. I like that theory for sure, because we know that Saul got that yearbook in that deleted scene where he found out that Walter White really was a chemistry teacher at JP Wynn, and it's implied that Mike was the PI who tracked down that information. So it would, but that of course doesn't take place until like what 4 years in the future from now, in the current point in the timeline. So it would definitely have to be a flash forward. So hyper real, yeah, maybe not this week for sure, but they're definitely coming back in this season for sure, but maybe not this episode for sure. It's a total conspiracy theory by me, and maybe it is a total red herring. How, oh, what a coincidence, they tweet a photo from the episode Negri Azul, and the 5th episode is entitled Black and Blue. It's just a total red herring. So again, Thieves, the audio is really quiet. Again, I don't know if you're being true, or I don't know if you're just kind of trolling because my voice is incredibly loud. It's one or the other. So dude, trust me, man. Or woman, I guess. I don't want to misgender you. I don't know what this name is, but yeah, seriously, I know I have a loud voice. It's been told to me many, many times before. So yeah, I think he's just joking because my voice is so damn loud, Eddie. That's another good point, Danny. The Gene scenes. I've heard that date again. Where are you getting that date from? Because I know I've heard a lot of people speculate on the date of when exactly, what year the Gene scenes take place. It has to be enough time for pass for Saul Goodman, I guess, to lose more of his hair. But hair loss can be pretty precipitous for male pattern baldness being pretty common. But that is a great question. I do wonder what year those scenes take place. We don't know, and theoretically, from episodes or seasons 1 to 5, which were 5 different scenes. Again, we don't even know that those could have taken place over many years theoretically, or many months. We don't know. So that's a good point. So his license plate says 2012, Danny. Okay, I got you. Actually, speaking of which, I don't want to get all into this, but I believe, if I'm not mistaken, like someone can correct me here, I believe this season 5 of Breaking Bad took place in 2013, I believe. If I'm not mistaken, it was filmed in 2013. Of course, the last episode took place in 2010. But I remember I went back and watched the very first episode of season 5, Live Free or Die. And I hate to do this right now, but because you mentioned the license plate, Danny. If you go back and look at the plates, or what do you call that? The placemat for the Denny's restaurant. If you, on the very bottom of the placemat, it says the year 2013 because that's the year it was filmed. So again, show's ruined. Horrible show, unwatchable. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, it's actually kind of funny. I think someone was pointing that out too on Reddit about the bikes that were in that scene. Whatever that brand wasn't invented until the year like 2009 or something to that effect. Don't quote me on that. And that scene takes place in 2004. So again, like totally unwatchable, right? It's a joke. So, but but yeah, the point I'm getting at here is, yeah, there's like I've seen a lot of those inconsistencies where like certain cars are prominently featured in this show, but they didn't exist until much, much later in the timeline compared to where the show was supposed to take place. Same with like the video game Rage that Jesse Pinkman was playing. It didn't come out in the right year compared to what year the episode takes place. So was that hair loss meds? I think it was Surna Fish. It was actually, I think he was taking that fake drug too that was featured in one episode, I believe, and maybe season 4 of but no, season 2. I think some fake medicine that they did a TV commercial for. I think when in the episode, let me go back to the here. I think it was in season 2 in the episode. I don't remember exactly what episode it was. Right before, it might have been in Valley High, right before he quit his job in Inflatable. But he was definitely taking that fake medicine that he was watching a commercial for on late night television, if I'm not mistaken. So, who do you think killed Tony in the diner? Hyperreal, I'm sorry to admit I have not seen The Sopranos. I know the reference you're referring to, but I believe so. Maybe I'm totally wrong, but I'm sorry. I've never seen The Sopranos. I've seen clips here and there, so I've kind of like ruined it for me. I've definitely seen clips on YouTube, but I've never watched it the cover to cover. It was a little bit before my time. I think when it was like premiering live, I think I would have been a little bit too young to appreciate it. And I never got around to watching it. So No, they're still in 2004, Benedict Jones. They are still in 2004. Again, we are over 4 years from the start of Breaking Bad. If you take the timeline that was revealed to us in the teaser of American Greed, which says that Saul's office was raided in 2010, meaning that Walter White's 50th birthday was in 2008. So we're still in the year 2004. So I definitely think that's possible, Coconut Head. After seeing what we've seen so far with Nacho, I really think just any predictions we can make with Lalo can just totally go out the window. I mean, I think I was making a video about, yeah, that video I made when I was thinking about how, you know what, it's theoretically possible that they could pull some Pulp Fiction thing here where, Lalo survives the end of Better Call Saul season 6, but maybe we have a flash forward to some point in the timeline between Saul Goodman's dialogue in season 2 of Breaking Bad and Gus Fring's dialogue in season 4 of Breaking Bad, and he dies in there, but he sort of comes back. So, I have no idea what's going to happen with Lalo. So, car wash scene, Lewis A9. Yeah, I thought about that, but like the only thing is if we take Walter White's dialogue at face value, where Jesse dealing with Crazy 8 the car wash, we're kind of getting a little bit into the fan fiction here. I feel, but if you take his dialogue at face value, it's still a couple of months until he starts working there because he says he worked there for 4 years, meaning he quits right around September of 2008, and we're still probably only in May. We're not all the way in September yet, but you could take some artistic liberties with that dialogue. 4.5 years could mean 4 years, or 3.5 years could mean 4 years. So yes, Pablo Wayne, they have met in season 2 of Better Call Saul in the episode entitled Witness. And that's actually an interesting point, Pablo. I remember just going back to sort of the whether or not Saul was embellishing on a lot of his dialogue with Walter White, and even the sort of, it really kind of opens up a can of worms when you really sort of say, well, we can sort of take artistic license with anyone's dialogue from the plot of Breaking Bad when we're sort of talking about canon. And I was thinking back to the scene of Walter White having dinner with Gus Fring, and he said kids don't eat it. And there's been no reference to him whatsoever having children after that. And if anything, it's actually kind of been implied that he doesn't have children. Of course, his entire backstory was not set up yet at that point in time in season 3 of Breaking Bad when that meeting happened. So, of course, his character wasn't totally displayed to us. And a lot of people have speculated in hindsight that maybe he was manipulating Walter White or something to that effect. We're kind of using artistic license to sort of explain away why he had those toys in his house and that table that was clearly meant for children in his home. But then after that, it was completely removed. And it's also implied that he and Max were lovers. And can you really imagine Gus Fring having a child with someone else besides Max when he clearly was just so in love with him and was just myopically focused on this revenge against the cartel for his death? Could he really have children with someone else as concurrently with that plot of revenge? It didn't make a lot of sense. And the point I'm getting at here, long way back to that thing about Saul meeting Gus Fring, is that when Saul said he never did not know Gus Fring's name in season 2 of Breaking Bad, some people speculated, before that scene, oh, well, maybe he was embellishing, maybe he was not telling Saul the truth, or not telling Walt the truth, excuse me. But based on that scene and based on just everything that's been displayed to us of that scene, as well as him not knowing who Mike works for, it's pretty damn clear that, at least at this point currently in the timeline, Saul has no idea about Gus Fring. But the question is, will he learn about him by the time Walter White and he meet in season 2 of Breaking Bad in the episode entitled Better Call Saul? So that's the big point. So yeah, Frank Murr, I tend to agree. It just doesn't make sense for me. I really feel like it undermines the narrative if he actually had children. And of course, at the time, his storyline wasn't set up. And actually, interesting, if we go back to actually season 2 of Breaking Bad, I know a lot of people like to joke about the sort of very weird storyline that ensued with a sort of Wayfair plane crash. And I'm pretty sure that storyline had to be written in because at the time when season 2 of Breaking Bad was airing, they didn't know whether or not they would get renewed for a third season. They were kind of setting themselves up for a conclusion with the body parts and the eye and the floating pink bear. But I guess when the show like picked up in popularity and it got renewed, they had to sort of put together all those pieces somehow. I believe this is true if I'm not mistaken, and that's sort of why they written that plane crash, which kind of seemed like really out of left field, where this is what it was building to. But in hindsight, it really did kind of work when you just thought about how Walter White's actions just had these sort of rippling effects all throughout the sort of universe. So again, it sort of worked, but in hindsight, I definitely feel like they were sort of backtracking after initially setting it up. So, and that kind of applied with Gus Fring as well, where when that scene was in there, that whole backstory with Max clearly wasn't even written yet, because that was season 3 of Breaking Bad, when Walter White went over to Gus Fring's house for dinner, and we didn't even learn about Max Arciniega until season 4. So, just definitely sort of pretty much written out, I think, and I think we can just take artistic license to sort of explain away that dialogue as manipulation of Walter White, possibly. So. I hope you're just joking there, Thomas. And that would mean he stays in Germany until the year 2008. So, yep, nice pull there, Lewis A9. I like that. Nice pull there. I like that. I like that. I like that reference to that meeting for sure. That's a good point, Benedict Jones. I believe that was 2009, I believe, maybe early 2009 when it was set up. Again, the lab clearly wasn't set up until, the lab was not set up until Walter White was in the picture. So at least 2008, maybe even 2009, because Gale clearly tested that blue meth in that episode. And so, yeah, the lab's not going to be set up, but I think we're going to maybe see the structure could have been finished much earlier than then, theoretically. So it could have been all the interior could have been done all correctly for sure. But yeah, we definitely won't likely see the lab set up at the end of Better Call Saul, just based on the nature of the timeline of Breaking Bad for sure. And that is a good point too, Tom. And I didn't even see that last part you read. So it'll take 5 years. Yeah, that's a whole different story there. That's a really good point. Where why did it take Gus Fring so long to set up that lab? That's a really good point that I haven't even considered. You know, that is a great point. You do wonder, maybe Lalo is still out there. Wow, I mean, who knows? I'm always sort of thinking here. So yeah, maybe Lalo's out there the entire time. Who knows? That would be kind of crazy if the cartel just everyone thinks he's dead. Hector sort of knows he's alive, but doesn't know that Gus knows. I mean, man, we are really going down the rabbit hole here, man. So again, it just so much like again, that's why I feel like it's so hard to make an actual concrete video about any of this, because anytime you make a video, it's very finite, and it's very finite, and it wraps up in what, like 10 15 minutes or something like that. But like I feel like there's just so many different avenues that I haven't even considered, and that was actually a really good point too that you raised there about the super lab. Like, why did it wait until the year 2008 or 9 to fully set up, and we're in 2004 and it's still in a hole in the ground? So that's a really good point, man. I appreciate that one. Lewis A9. I don't know if we'll see Hank again. Again, Hank was really sort of to set up the Crazy Eight storyline, and I don't know. I really just feel like Hank doesn't really factor into the plot too much anymore, at least on the surface. And also, kind of the nitpick here. I mean, it was kind of weird to see the 50, probably almost 60-year-old actor Dean Norris play a character who was supposed to be in his 30s. I mean, the aging is quite extreme. I know it doesn't really. It sort of mattered to me last season. I mean, this season has been unbelievable. I've really enjoyed season 6, even more than season 5. But I don't know. I don't think we'll see Hank Schrader again. I could be totally wrong. I probably am totally wrong about everything I'm rambling about right now. But who knows? Yeah, it's a little Justin. We'd have to have a flashback to like well before any of this. I mean, Jesse's probably what, like 20, 21 years old right now. So I don't think he's still in high school if he's 21. So I don't think that's gonna happen. So yeah, I didn't like the goatee either, Thomas. I didn't. I wish, I know he'd look a lot older too, but you wish he would just kind of like look a little bit more like his. He looked quite different from when we first saw him in the plot of Breaking Bad. But it is what it is. Again, I don't want to go off on a whole tangent here about the appearance of the characters, but it's definitely something I've thought about. And actually, I was talking with someone, and actually, I was thinking about that sort of Irishman technology about some theoretical spinoff with Gus Fring, and apparently, it's really expensive to do that technology. So, if they greenlit a project with Giancarlo Esposito playing a younger version of himself, that would be pretty damn expensive to use all that de aging technology. So I don't know if we'll see that. It may be a little bit too good to be true. So relax and sleep. I apologize, man. I apologize. Oh wow, Cinco Bones, thank you so much for the super chat. Since we know that Kim knows Lalo isn't dead, do you think she'll be the one to reveal to Jimmy he's alive, and that's why when he sees that, dude, I mean, it's theoretically possible. Like someone asked about that a lot earlier in the stream about, is it possible that Kim's behind the scenes the entire time? And I told you I said in the stream that when Ray Seahorn said that this season was quote unquote devastating, to use the one word to describe it on Twitter, I said to myself, if it's devastating, how can Kim be behind the scenes? That's such a happy ending to me. I mean, it's really hard to square that circle at the same time. I think about like all the webisodes of Breaking Bad with Saul Goodman, where he's literally having sex with a prostitute in his office. It's clearly implied he's doing that in one scene, and with Kim Lu Sung, his chiropractor who's adjusting him to completion. Is it like, I guess maybe they have an open relationship? I mean, it seems so hard to square that circle. I guess it's possible she's still in the fold, but they're not in a relationship together anymore. I mean, that's actually kind of, I never even considered that too. That would actually be kind of devastating too, because I really feel like these two characters are just syncing so well together right now, and they're just so in love, I feel. And that would be quite the twist there, where if they're not together anymore, but they're still together in a business sense. I haven't even considered that. So again, with it being just so open-ended, and with like the twist we had with Nacho Vargas storyline in episode 3, who knows? I guess it's possible. I definitely think it's possible. I mean, are you saying like, if it would be the first one to reveal to Jimmy that he's alive, that would be like, wait, I mean, are you saying like right now? Like, it's definitely possible now, but I don't think she's going to be able to hold it in until like many, many years in the future. I definitely think that fear is going to be with Saul all the time, where that fear of Lalo is going to be out there. So he's definitely afraid of Lalo, and I definitely think that Kim is going to reveal that information to her. But again, I don't know. To him, excuse me, but I just don't know when. So yeah, and that's actually interesting. I hadn't even considered that. Where if you think if the devastation is because their relationship ends, but they still work together in a business sense, again, I don't even know if that's possible. Who knows? Man, it'd be crazy. It must be, I don't know how you write television. I'm not well versed in this arena at all. I'm just some guy. I've never worked in that field, but I can only imagine what the sort of conversations that happen in that writer's room are, where they're sort of bouncing ideas off of one another and stuff like that. I do wonder, like, they consider this and that, and like, no, we can't do this, we can't do that. So, yeah. I think she's going to turn into Chuck kind of person to Jimmy, where he ends up hating her. Is that what you're kind of saying? Like, or maybe Kim runs off with Lalo. Again, I hope you're trolling there, Bartman. Yeah, I mean, damn, man, that would be devastating, because, like I said, they just seem so perfect for each other right now. And definitely the reservations of Saul to Kim's sort of embrace of his sort of quote unquote Saul Goodman persona were definitely noticeable when the season started. But I really feel like in the most recent episode, when Kim was sort of talking to Saul about her feeling like she had was being followed, Saul was very dismissive of this and said, "No one knows what we're doing except for us." Earlier in the conversation, saying we're really on a roll here. So, right now, just things seem to be going great for them. But of course, that just sort of fear that Kim exhibited, that look back when they were walking to Taco Cabeza or driving there after at the end of that scene, that fear that's with Kim, just really ruining the sort of momentum that they have right now, was really something for sure. So, and definitely too, I mean, if I don't want to spoil it for anyone who hasn't seen it, so spoiler alert. But in the preview for the next episode, we definitely see Kim putting a chair underneath the handle of the door to sort of reinforce it, I guess, because of that fear for Lalo. We see her doing that. So I do wonder how long until until that revelation happens to Saul and in what form that takes. So that's a really good point. Eddie, thank you so much, man. I appreciate it. Thanks for all the analysis. Do you have any thoughts on why Nacho did not kill Juan Bolsa before killing him? So that's another good point too, as well. I mean, in terms of continuity, he couldn't do it because it would have been a total error in continuity. But I thought about this a little bit. I did wonder if it was just because he really just wanted to. I don't know. That's a good point. I mean, that's a really good point there. I haven't thought about this enough to tell you the truth, but I think some of it had to do with him just totally honoring his commitment to Gus Fring and Mike of, okay, if I do this, you said that my father would be protected forever, so I'm going to do what I'm supposed to do, and just I'm the only one here who's supposed to die. And I suppose if Juan Bolsa had been killed as well, maybe the suspicion would have been even greater on Gus Fring of where he got that piece of glass from, or something to that effect, or how was he able to slip from his shackles or his plastic zip tie possibly. So again, obviously he couldn't do it for continuity purposes, but I think it might have been just because he really wanted to honor his father. And I think it was more about just him not going out on his knees, proverbially speaking, and he just wanted to go out on more of his own terms as much as possible. And killing Juan Bolsa wasn't part of the plan. And maybe that's why he did it again. I'm speculating here, but that's all I'm doing. So, again, I don't know for sure. So, that would have maybe raised even more suspicions. And I feel like with Nacho, it almost seemed just like Nacho just sort of took an impulsive thing and then, was just sort of, maybe it seemed as though he just kind of chickened out, even though he definitely didn't do that. But maybe that's the sort of appearance he wanted to give off to the cartel. I don't know. That's an interesting point. If you actually go back and watch the Better Call Saul Insider podcast, of the third episode, even Vince Gilligan, I think I talked about this in a previous live stream, but Vince Gilligan talked about how he kind of gave the counterfactual to, like, why did Nacho just start shooting the cousins and Hector and have, use Juan Bolsa for cover, and then maybe Tyrus and Victor would have shot them as well. So again, a lot of counterfactuals here for sure, but again, at the end of the day, we don't know. And that's going to be the kind of interesting thing here is where, even though Better Call Saul is ending in 9 episodes in August, I really feel like there's just going to be so much left that is open-ended into the imagination that I really feel like a lot of it is going to be up to everyone's own individual interpretation instead of it just being concretely displayed to us. So, Rom Pelegos, excuse me if Rom Pelegos. Yeah, that was kind of, I feel like that was just kind of a necessary scene. I really enjoyed that scene where everyone was turning on Saul for, really sort of undermining the legal system there. And I really feel like it kind of needed to happen just because, like, Saul was really a criminal lawyer first before a, criminal lawyer. And he really was truly a criminal. And you would imagine that someone like that wouldn't have a very good reputation in the legal system with the the police officers and with the court and with the attorneys and the DA and everything like that. He's more of a someone who cozies up to the criminals as opposed to the legal system. So it was definitely amazing change of pace. Amazing is probably not the right word, but definitely a stark change of pace for sure, because Saul is just so charming and personable and is just so likable with just his personality to like all those people, but they really turned on him really quickly after what he did with Lalo. So yeah, Kickflip Demon, if you're comparing Nacho to Jesse, I definitely agree. I'm definitely going to have to make a video about the comparison of Nacho to Jesse, because I've made my thoughts on that pretty clear about how I really feel like Nacho was deserving of redemption a little bit more than Jesse Pinkman. Again, that is just my opinion. I know a lot of people out there will likely disagree, but I definitely just feel like if you go back and just sort of look at the story of Jesse Pinkman from the plot of Breaking Bad and compare it to Nacho, I mean, I don't think Jesse's a bad guy. I don't, but just like, I don't know, just this sort of overt sort of kind of hero sort of mantra we give to him, and just maybe that's not the right word, but I just feel like why Jesse? Like, why was Jesse so much more deserving of this redemption than all these other characters as well? So I'll definitely have to break that down more in a different video. It's definitely something that's definitely something I've wanted to talk about, and I actually never got the opportunity to talk about El Camino after it came out because I wasn't able to make YouTube videos for almost 2 years. But yeah, that's an interesting point there. Definitely the Jesse of the story. So I'm trying to did Nacho kill anyone? I'm trying to think. I mean, I don't know if he kill anyone with did he pull the trigger on anyone specifically? He definitely aided and abetted in the death of some people when like he definitely sort of, allowed Jimenez to be killed by Hector and the cousins, I guess. But I guess that's a whole different thing. But again, yeah, that Jesse Gale thing, that one really is a big part of it in my opinion. And I really think about Jesse and Gale being kind of very similar too. I feel like that comparison isn't made enough as well, but I really feel like there's a lot of sort of parallels there between those two characters as well. And I really feel like Gale kind of really deserves if Jesse deserves that redemption. It's definitely Gale's death was definitely quite tragic as well. And I don't know. I feel like it was displayed as being quite tragic in the plot of Breaking Bad, but maybe part of me thinks it's glossed over a little bit more than it should have been. I don't know. That's right, Danny. That is a good point. In that shootout in season 4 of season 4 Better Call Saul, I believe in the episode entitled "Talk," if I'm not mistaken, that shootout he did kill some of the gang members who he framed for the and bear and bore frame. Let's just framed who framed for the when Gus Fring's plan against the cartel. That's right. He did kill some of those gang members. That's right. Trouble path, man. I hope you're trolling. I hope you're trolling. Yeah, Benedict Jones, that's an interesting point as well. I've thought about that, about why they introduced that dialogue last season about how Tuco's getting out of jail in 11 months, even though he didn't get out of jail until 2007 from the plot of Breaking Bad. And I think the whole point of him going to jail in the first place is they wanted to have some sort of grand event which put him in jail in the first place. And it's actually kind of interesting how that storyline with Mike is the reason why he was in jail in the first place. But if he gets out in 11 months, I feel like that kind of undermines the story a little bit, a little bit. So that is an interesting point. I wondered why they interjected that dialogue. And if he does go out, if he does get out of, I guess prison, if he does get out of prison and then have to go back, it's like I really wonder what the point of that is. So I'm a little bit confused about that dialogue, to tell you the truth, about the um the 11 months that Lalo said to Hector at the end of season 5 of Better Call Saul. So that's interesting. Synchro Bones. I talked about that in a previous video about the Howard Hamlin sort of red hair uh, in that photo. Again, I guess it's possible, but at the end of the day, who knows? I mean, some of this speculation is really tough. So I agree, Benedict Jones as well. I hope it was totally wrong. I might have been just some random comment somewhere where someone said that the actor who plays Skinny Pete isn't going to appear in this season, but I don't think I've heard anything that confirms that. So I would love to see that for sure. Like I said, I'd love to see Lalo interact with some of his cousins as well. So and I do wonder with Lalo, people talking about Lalo. I do wonder if he's going to appear in the next episode. If we're not going to see him, I really don't know. It'll be interesting to see. I don't think he was teased in the for the next episode, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think he was teased in the teaser that was released after that episode. I'm trying to see if they. I'm not sure if they released an official plot description for episode 5, Black and Blue. I think Lalo might have been mentioned, but yeah, it says while business booms for Jimmy, the Vice tightens on the cat and mouse game between Gus and Lalo. Again, I don't know if this is official confirmed, but I have seen this in other places as well. So I don't know what this means with the Vice Titans. I mean, there is definitely a cat and mouse game going on between these two characters, but whether or not Lalo's going to appear in the next episode, I don't know. I talked about it earlier in the stream how there was a 4 episode stretch consecutively where Nacho Varga did not appear in season 1 of Better Call Saul. So yeah, Coconut Head with the Ice Station Zebras. Yeah, I'd love to see the Kettlemans come into that somehow. But again, I mean, in the episode of American Greed, they were portrayed as victims of Saul Goodman. But then again, they are the type of people who would be like, "What have you done for me?" as of 5 seconds ago. So I guess it could be possible where they were kind of in bed with Saul Goodman, but when the shit hits the fan, they sort of play the victim card and say, "Oh, he was a terrible person." So they're pretty spineless for sure. It's weird. They're so spineless, yet they're almost sort of what's not redeeming, but they're almost, I don't even know what the word is. They're sympathetic almost in just a way because of just how naive they are. It's weird. You almost kind of feel sorry for them. It's like it's almost hard to dislike. It's almost hard to dislike them just because they're just so incompetent. It's hard to explain with the Kettlemans. So I hope so, Justin Cruz. If you're referring to Kubi, I definitely hope that he appears for sure. I've talked about that in many previous videos. Really hope he appears. That's a good point as well, Thomas Cunningham. You'd think it'd be Kim. I mean, I don't know what other lawyer it would be as well if you're talking about the call that's supposed to take place on Saul Goodman's birthday with Francesca that was talked about in the flash forward scene in the episode entitled Quite a Ride. Oh, not again to go full conspiratorial here, actually, come to mention it, but if we go back here, again, really putting on my tinfoil hat here, but I believe if we go back to season 4 of Better Call Saul with the fifth episode being Black and Blue, which is the same name as Negro y Azul, which is the same episode which this photo was tweeted from. Again, really conspiratorial here, but look at this. The episode entitled Quite a Ride was the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th episode of season 4. So are we going to get the flash forward scene to the plot of Breaking Bad in this episode? Because the 5th, I mean, man, we are really going down the conspiracy theory rabbit hole here with all this stuff that is, I mean, you can make anything connect together if you really want to. So yeah, Thomas Cunningham, speaking of that phone call to Kim, who knows? Maybe we'll get a flash, maybe Quite a Ride, Black and Blue, who knows? So that's another trouble path. That's another interesting point about Clifford's son. Again, I don't know if we have time to see all of these little specific details. I definitely think the point of that dialogue was to display to us that Cliff has sympathy for Kim Wexler's cause. There's, again, like he said, it gave him a more personal view of the legal system. But again, I don't know if we're going to see all of these characters for sure. So, Suran fish? No, I haven't seen. I know. I'm pretty sure there's some clear shots of the notebook there. I think some people decoded it or wrote down what it was. But no, I haven't. I haven't looked at it myself. So, but I definitely think if you look at like an HD version of that episode, there's a clear enough shot where you can see what's written on there. Again, is it a red herring? I don't know. Again, there's just so much setup here that you forget has to be displayed. We have to see that. You'd think we have to see that phone call. You think we'd have to see the who's the lawyer? Tell him that Jimmy sent you. Again, that's actually, I confused that earlier with the phone call that was supposed to be on Saul Goodman's birthday, but we forget about the cab driver, the person he brought with him, the notebook. I mean, there's just so much here that you think, aren't they going to talk about all of this? Because then why did they even put it in the plot in the first place, and why is it so prominently featured? But yeah, Justin Cruz, I've heard that as well. I've heard Chuck flashbacks are theoretically possible for sure. So that's actually a good point as well, Sydney Storm. I remember that quote he said. But was it in the first or second episode? I think it might have been the first about the golf quote, because Saul says in that one episode, I believe in season 4 of Breaking Bad, maybe it was Problem Dog, where he's talking to someone on the phone about playing golf, but there's really been no inclination that Saul plays golf, but we know that Kim plays golf. So again, I'm not sure if that's just sort of a filler piece of dialogue here where, again, I've heard that the timelines aren't going to match up completely, Sydney. So again, I'm not sure. Maybe it's just sort of like filler dialogue that's going to be used to sort of explain what's not explained, if that makes sense. If the timelines don't meet up perfectly. So oh yeah, Aviero. That's right. Good call. Jesse Pinkman did say that. Jesse Pinkman, that's a good call. Again, you wonder, again, so many things here where you're connecting the dots. You wonder, are these red herrings, or are these clues? Because part of me thinks these clues are maybe a little bit too obvious, maybe, but then I'm thinking, maybe I'm overthinking, maybe they want us to think they're too obvious. I don't know. So I have thought about that as well, Benedict Jones, about why Hector's in Casa Tranquila, but when we see him, he's in that house in the country. I do wonder if they're going to address that as well. I do wonder. I've thought about that for sure. If maybe that'd be kind of interesting if the very last shot we see of Hector Salamanca is him at that location. If we see him there in the end when season 6 ends, that would be kind of interesting for sure. But of course, at the same time, it is possible. But no, I would say it definitely looked like he'd been living there for a while. So I think it's possible for sure. So Thomas Cunningham, definitely think that's possible using Caldera, the veterinarian, as the sort of branch to Ed the Disappearer. That's definitely possible. And again, I do wonder because, unfortunately the actor passed away, and you do wonder if they changed the story because of that with Gene, or maybe even with Gene figuring out, how he met Ed the Disappearer. But it's definitely possible that, because again, I talked about this in the previous video, how he said he didn't even know the guy's name, but he had the contact of him. So maybe there's some sort of storyline that ensues over the course of the next 9 episodes, which establishes to us where and when and in what capacity Saul got that contact for sure. Man, so yeah, I mean, just going back to this, I mean, based on this photo, I don't think we're gonna see that car wash scene in the next episode. Maybe it will happen. Maybe that's a little bit too fan servicey. Maybe it's a little bit too cliche. But just can't wait to see what happens. When I definitely heard people talking about this on Reddit for weeks before I even made that post about it today. But again, yeah, it's just definitely something to think about for sure. So Bill Burr has way less hair now than when he played Kubi. Yeah, like I said, I think we're just the nature of the fluctuating appearances of characters. Chef Big Hat, excuse me. I really just think Kubi is gonna be bald if and when we see him. So I guess he was shaving his head in the timeline of Breaking Bad, and then he decided to grow it out in 4 years. So definitely possible. I mean, people make decisions with their hair. It wouldn't be the end of the world. But really, we need to see Patrick Kubi. So I could go off on a whole thing about that. So I know a lot of people have said like, oh, people just want to see Patrick Kubi because Bill Burr is famous and everyone wants to see him. But no, the reason why I want to see Patrick Kubi is because he's a crucial. I mean, not that crucial, but he's one of the closest members of Saul Goodman's entourage that were displayed to us in the plot of Breaking Bad. I mean, we've seen Hugh Babineau, we've seen Francesca. The only one we haven't seen is Patrick Kubi, and he played a very crucial role in many prominent storylines in the plot of Breaking Bad. And part of me thinks the only reason we haven't seen him is because Bill Burr is actually, I mean, not to undermine the other actors in this show that aren't, the other non-main characters in this show, but I really just feel like Bill Burr is like the biggest star out of all of them. I mean, I feel like he's always like touring and doing all sorts of things, and he's probably the most prominent actor of any non-major character, I would say. So maybe that's why he's not doing it. But again, I would think we have to see him in season 6. I mean, that would be, again, I couldn't even believe it. If 6 seasons of Better Call Saul and we don't see Bill Burr and he was supposed to appear in season 5, but he didn't. I mean, come on. So yeah, Scotty Snow, that is an interesting point about Lalo. Again, I do wonder if part of me thinks Lalo is going to survive. Like, maybe not, but part of me just think, like, anything I thought would happen with Lalo is like, oh, of course Lalo's going to die because of Gus Fring's infamous piece of dialogue. But just based on his absence here in the last 3 episodes, and with who knows if he's even going to appear in the next episode, I mean, I really feel like we're going to have a crazy twist with the Lalo's fate as well. I mean, I have thought about that as well. I mean, with Nacho and Lalo sort of being referenced in Breaking Bad, technically based on Saul Goodman's dialogue, and I guess Kim was technically referenced too with Saul mentioning he was married 3 times, and the point of, and Howard Hamlin wasn't mentioned at all, you would think. I mean, theoretically, I guess it's possible Saul was talking about him at some point too, but I just really feel like after the total unexpected twist that happened to Nacho Varga. I mean, the death was definitely foreseeable, but not so early. But I just really feel like the conclusion of those four characters you imagine would just be is not going to be what we expect at all, and is not going to be cliche seemingly or predictable just based on what happened with Nacho Varga. So when they have the open-endedness of characters like Lalo and Kim and Howard probably the most so, Lalo seemingly the least so, but you definitely think that the creators are really gonna, they took a lot of time with production being delayed and everything. They really took the time to craft some very unexpected, compelling storylines with those four non-Breaking Bad characters in air quotes. So again, I don't know how that works. She's definitely credited in all those episodes, but I don't know how that works. Technically, I'm not well versed in filming and Hollywood and the union and all that. So that is interesting. So yeah, but Justin Cruz, I hope he commits to the role and shaves his head. Definitely didn't care for the ball cap, but it is what it is. Apparently, he was working on a different role. So when El Camino was going on, so. Oh man. I'm laughing at a comment. I'm not gonna say which one, but maybe you maybe you can guess which one I'm laughing at. Let's just say that's a funny name there of the person who wrote that comment. Man, yeah. So anyway, I think on that note, I think I'm gonna wrap it up on this one. I really appreciate everyone for tuning in. Like I said, I was planning on making some more like actual videos on these storylines, but I just really feel like they're just so open ended that like it's so hard to speculate on something because I really feel like it just feels so futile, and I really would just rather sort of just openly ramble just about or I guess ramble and speculate just about all the various different possibilities in respect to this storyline. And I appreciate the comments. I mean, I definitely learned a lot here. There's a lot of theories here that I hadn't considered for sure. I appreciate the super chats so much. Thank you so much. Wasn't expecting that. I was not expecting that at all. Almost at a loss for words. So really free. Damn, relax and sleep. Damn, man, that's funny. Anyway, so you got me there. So anyway, I'll see you guys around on the next one. Definitely will stream on Sunday before the episode airs, and maybe we'll do another one of these this week too as well. So I appreciate everyone for tuning in, and have a great night. I'll see you guys around.